Es un verdadero honor el día de hoy tener como invitados a dos grandes conocedores de la diplomacia y muy particularmente de las relaciones internacionales de Indonesia. El día de hoy tenemos una doble conferencia en la cual analizaremos las relaciones entre México e Indonesia y América Latina en su conjunto. We are really privileged to have with us today His Excellency Ambassador Yusra, who is the Indonesian ambassador in Mexico and who was previously the permanent representative of Indonesia vis-a-vis the United Nations. So he knows a lot about Indonesian foreign policy, but also about multilateral affairs and international negotiation. He will make a presentation on the current relations between Mexico and Indonesia. After that, we'll have the honor of listening to Dr. Sulthon Sabaruddin, I've never been able to pronounce it correctly, I'm so sorry, Sulthon, who will concentrate on the relations between Indonesia and Latin America as a whole. I can read the CV of each of them. Let me just say that it's impossible to find someone who knows more about Indonesian foreign policy than His Excellency the Ambassador and Sulthon. So instead of using the time to make presentations, I will immediately give the microphone to His Excellency the Ambassador, thanking him again for his huge generosity to come to CIDE and share with us all his knowledge on Indonesia and on Indonesia-Mexico relations. Ambassador, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much to Professor Sjahril for your very nice word about me, and I hope I can feel the expectations as what you mentioned about myself. But at least I would like to appreciate and thanks to the CIDE who have given me an opportunities to come to this campus today to interact with all of you, to talk about anything related to the Indonesian and Mexican foreign relations. And Professor Lorena Urbano, the Director of International Studies Divisions, and Professor His Excellency Omar Martinez, who always be with us, I believe, whenever we are here, even though this is my first time to come to your campus. But I really feel comfortable and honored to be with you today, in particular in this special room, in these special occasions, and also knowing that we have our Foreign Service official that now receive an honor from you to have the visiting professor to be in the campus to share what he knows about Indonesia and our foreign relations of ours, Mexico. And Buenas tardes or Selamat siang, that is in Indonesia how we express after we have our time after 12 until before evening. And indeed, as I mentioned earlier, that I feel honored to be here. Why? One of the main reasons because we came from the same background. I was, before coming to New York and to Mexico, in the same division of Mr. Sulthon. But the presence of Mr. Sulthon here is nothing to do with me. As I said, because of your came from the same division in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And also, I feel also very grateful that you give an opportunity to our young diplomat, Mr. Sjahril. It's very rare in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, people at that young, already get his PhD, while also still have to work within our department. But this is now the reality, the competition, and the way forward in any institutions, in any field, in any countries. I think need you to be more equipped to face the challenge ahead. So that's why also reflected in the relations, both bilaterally or multilaterally. So today I have been given a chance to talk about the 62 years Indonesia and Mexico diplomatic relations, some reflection and ways forward. And indeed, this is one of the steps that can bring us more advanced and more close in tightening and improve our bilateral relations in the future. In particular with me, I will present two main themes. Those that I mentioned is the theme that will be brought through this entire discussion things. But first, indeed, within Indonesia and Mexico bilateral relations, firstly, I would like to a little bit talk about the Indonesian picture, as we call as the wonderful Indonesia. That's the term that we always put when we promote Indonesia, not only in the area of political, but also, or in particular, when we promote Indonesia in the tourism aspect. But then we come to the diplomatic relations in the second part between Indonesia and Mexico. Let me start to inform you. I think you all know that Indonesia is a country which is located in Southeast Asia. We are the biggest country in Southeast Asia, which is consists of 10 countries. If we put it into a sub-regional organization which is now exists between the 10 countries, we call it ASEAN. And we, Indonesia itself, sometimes people say that we have more than 17,000 islands. But now, our researcher, Mr. Sulthon, pushed me to read that we have now 18,307 islands in Indonesia. I think that is true. It is really become the sea level. If you are on the tide, and then you will see that the number of the islands becomes 17,000, because so many small islands within the Indonesia. And we are subject to the so-called in climate change adaptations, if you know that, I know that you know that all. The issue that have been very prominent in the last 10 years. Unluckily that Indonesia is not part of the small island development state, even though we are part of the country that pushed the negotiation and until they adopt the establishment of the group of the small island states within the international organization, including in the United Nations. But we still want to be considered because we face the same problem with the small island development states. And we have 254.5 million. It was in 2014. A little bit in the middle of 2015. We are now 260 million people altogether. So we speak more than 300 languages, and we have more than 300 ethnic groups in Indonesia, and that we are united by one language, which is Indonesia, Bahasa Indonesia. Why we then use Bahasa Indonesia become our national language? It was the history of heroic In the past, as you know, that we were occupied more than 350 years by the Dutch. But then, how we put the Indonesian language become our main language, it was the struggling of our youth, our students in the past, where they didn't have a commitment to get together in the city which is now the capital city of Indonesia, Jakarta. All of them, those ethnic, regardless of religions, and where they came from, get together in Jakarta, and then have the consensus to have one nation, one language, and one land, which is Indonesia. So since then they committed to use Indonesian language as the united language. So if you go everywhere in Indonesia, people speak Indonesian language. But in every local areas or provincial area, they speak their own language every day. But in the school, in the public life, in the office, they speak Indonesian language as united language. That is happened up until now. And we are lucky that we can maintain our own language to become our proudness of the country. And we have also one of the motto, we call it Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Here in Mexico, you call it Unidad and Diversidad, or Unity and Diversity. It is all reflected what I mentioned to you before. And we are also the third largest democratic country in the world and the largest Muslim populated country in the world. But we never become Islamic state or Muslim countries. Because of what? Because when we form our constitution, all of the representatives from many ethnic groups, from many level of intellectual, get together, about 45 of them. 40 of them were Muslim. The rest is Christian, Protestant, Hindu and Buddhist. But they managed to have the very valuable consensus that we embrace up until now, that we never become the religious country. We agreed to become a country like we are now. So that's why we maintain our life, our religious embrace of people relations in a harmonious way. And we move from there to now on into the state of condition right today. And our, actually in terms of our GDP, if you read on the screen, in 2014, we reached 188.5 billion. With the GDP per capita is less than Mexico, which is 3,491. But since 2009, we already recorded the positive growth and always increase. And beginning this year, we make an adjustment to our target of development, to target of the growth of Indonesia, since we managed to have nearly 7% growth within the last 5 years. But beginning this year, because of the economic conditions, the global economic situations, which has affected our economy as well, as similarly like Mexico, we make an adjustment to 5.5 to 5.3. But we believe within the 5 years period of the president, where they already set the growth, which is 7% in average by the end of 18, by the end of 2019, we believe that we can manage it because all the instruments that we are put forward now, including the reform in many sectors, and also what have been introduced by the government since the last 3 months, some economic package that will bring Indonesia to the growth that we are expected to become 7 years in the 5 years. So I would like also to let you know that we have a small introduction to you. This is Indonesia, and we have, say we come to a kind of like tourist destination areas. We call it, this is the food of Indonesia. Just would like to see a little bit about the food. We are having a similar hobby, you know, to eat out and to eat the delicious things. And this is a type of Indonesian food. You know, we have rendang padang, we have the satay ayam, you know, satay ayam, the chicken satay, chicken brochelet, and the other one is the carne, the beef, and we also have a rendang. You can see the picture of rendang. If you know, this is similar like you. If you go to Indonesia, you'll find this one is very tasty. Why we bring this for you at the first glance? I hope you already have your lunch, but you know that in our proverb we call to know to like is to love. Which means that if you know and then you will try it and then you like it and then you will love it. If you don't do it, you know, the parents, you know, you will not love it. But you know that I can also a little bit have a promotion here, like a rendang, and the one on the top left is already announced by voting of the CNN is the most delicious food in the world. I don't know why they say so, you know. Maybe we don't believe on CNN. I don't believe it also, you know, because I taste that one of the Mexican food is more healthier than rendang. Rendang is cooked, the main rendang is cooked not less than 6 hours. Not less than 6 hours. I don't know whether it's still healthy or no. But I don't do the research of myself, but I know the taco, some of the fresh cuisine of the Mexico is also very nice and healthy. The proof is that you nearly beat the Netherlands in the World Cup. I know why you even with them, because yes, people said it's an award for them. But it's kind of Indonesian food. If you find, like the previously you've seen in the pictures, the fish, some kind of a barbecue but marinated fish, this comes from Bali. This one. It's come from Bali, it's very famous in Bali. And I know most of Mexican tourists come to Bali and to see the similarity actually between Mexico and Indonesia. You have a very good land, a green land, and but also enriched with your cultural heritage. Same with Bali, and then also with your agriculture areas, and then with your arts, you will find much similarity with Bali. And most of the people from Mexico come to Bali and visit. They see that this is a similar culture with our culture. One of your very famous artists, the name is Miguel Covarrubias. He was visiting Bali in 1930 and 1933. He made a story about Bali, and he made a couple of paintings about Bali, which is very, very good. I saw it in Guggenheim Museum in New York. In fact, we know lately that he was sent by Guggenheim Museum to stay in Bali for 3 years to learn about the culture and about the art, about the uniqueness of the Bali at the time. So this first that brought the relations and more information about Bali to the Mexican people. And you also have the Minister of Agriculture. You know, when I said about 1933 to 1933, we are not yet as a country, as a state, because we are still under colonized of the Netherlands at the time. I believe that Guggenheim Museum in New York is also occupied by more of the Dutch people there, because New York is built by the Dutch. But in 1939, also your first Minister of Agriculture came to Indonesia. His name is Ignatius Partino Navarrete. They come to Indonesia to study and to research about the fruit in the tropical areas of Indonesia that can be brought to Mexico. Now, for example, you find a mango, you find a rambutan, you find a jackfruit. So we believe that this comes from the effort of this very important minister that came to Indonesia at that time. And after our independence also, we managed to build as the flagship of our relationship the school of the two countries. First is Escuela Republic of Indonesia, here in Colonia Tacuba, Mexico City, and Colegio Republica de Indonesia in Coacalco, Ecatepec, in 1979. And in Indonesia also, Mexican firstly established the Escuela Republic de Mexico, that is in Jakarta, one of the main areas in the center of the Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia. So this is not happened because of, if not, the cordial and very close relation between our two presidents. President Adolfo Lopez Mateos and President Sukarno, our first president and now as our proclamator also, in order that we gain our independence in 1945. And Indonesia showed their generosity, their sincereness to Mexican, as they know a country which has much potential to bring about the cordial and warm relations. So that's why within the 2 years, for example, 3 years, President Indonesia, Sukarno, visited Mexico 3 times, 59, 60, and 61. And then the visit of the President Adolfo Mateos to Indonesia in 1962. I found a document in University of Guadalajara. I came there about 15 days ago. They are going to have, I think, a big, what do you call it? The bookshop. The second largest in the world, is that. And I met with the curator of the library, and they showed me a book about the relation of Indonesia and a picture about the visit of those two big leaders of our countries. And then one of the very important landmark of the relation of Mexico and Indonesia is the visit of President Enrique Peña Nieto to Jakarta, to Bali, in 2013, in the sideline of the meeting of the APEC there in Bali, where we signed a number of the memorandum of understanding, and we agreed to have not only free trade areas that we have been discussed before, but become even more than a free trade area. We call it comprehensive partnership between Indonesia and Mexico, which is now underway of negotiation, and hopefully by the end of this year we finalize all of these remaining issues. In the area of cooperation, for example, let's say in multilateral areas, we have the cooperation, we have the membership within the APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperations, which also including Russia and India. And then we have a G20, we have the same membership at the WTO, and we even, two of the countries within the Latin America and the Asia that inspire the movement and the promotions of the FIALA of the cooperation of the country of the Latin and Central America and the Asia. The last meeting we had here in Costa Rica, August 2015, which is very impressive because both of us have the same interest to push these cooperations into a concrete and real cooperation that can bring more benefit to our peoples. Our President Jokowi, elected in 2014, and he was practically operational since January this year. And he brought one vision where our priority now is more in the economic cooperations, because we know that now the main issue that facing by not only our country, the region, and also the global now is in the economy. So, in our diplomacy, in particular, in relation with this vision of the President, we mostly emphasize on the economy. Although we know that the issue of diplomacy is not only the economy, but mainly we follow what have been underlined by the President since he was inaugurated October last year. For Indonesia, Mexico is still the main important countries. Why I call it still the main? Still, because we see that there are a vacuum a little bit since 1960, the end of 1960 until a number of years after that, I can say 2000s. We faced the problem of the economy at that time, 1998, and then we grow back with our economic development after we cope with the problem of the economic crisis in 1998, which we survived and can show that we are growing in 2001. But most of the mostly problem we solved within the year of 1998 to 2001, like the democratization, where we start from that year, and then we start our economic strategy to get out from the crisis, and then show the result by 2001 above. In the 2000, we also firstly do our decentralization from centralizations. We introduce our autonomy law, and we start to implement it de facto in 2000, in the year 2000. And you might notice that Indonesia also pioneered in bringing the issue of South-South cooperations, which I believe also the same interest with Mexico. Why I said so? I wanted to inform you that in 1955, Indonesia is the first country who organized the international conference in Southern Hemisphere, while most of the country in Africa struggling from the decolonizations. So we are one of the country, together with countries like India, Myanmar, and others, to push and to give inspiration and the courage and support the country under the colonizations. This is something which I believe similar with Mexico, because we give our attention for the Africa. In 1955, we call it the Conference of the Asia-Africa. But then, I believe that Mexico also have the form of the cooperation with the Africa, where they also have the annual inaugurations. Firstly, I attend this meeting in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mexico. Then I know that we have some kind of similarity in terms of this struggling of the colonization. As I mentioned earlier, in the international fora, not only in those organizations that I mentioned, to you, like G20, FIALA, MICTA, APEC, and WTO. But we also have a similar interest, especially in the United Nations, in many issues. Lately, we work together on the issue of microfinance, because we have been given some honor by the Secretary General of the United Nations to work together on how to bring the issue of the microfinance. Indonesia, Peru, and also Tanzania at the time, where at the same time Mexico also have very much interest in this area and bring this issue together into the United Nations to be discussed together with other countries. And this is the issue that are much relevant to what we call as Sustainable Development Goals, where we want the issue of the microfinance also be part of the discussions, to be part of the issue that have to be tackled by many countries in the world. In terms of our bilateral relations, I would like to inform to you that we are now, instead of trying to move up with our economic cooperations through the Conferencia partnership, which is now becoming the umbrella for many cooperation in this area. But to make that happen, we also bringing the supporting areas like now, for example, how to move our tourist exchange into a great number of significance to the interests of those countries. For example, to have the cost-sharing agreement between Indonesian national flag carrier and Malaysian national flag carriers, Aeromexico and Garuda Indonesia. We hope that by the end of this year, or not more than the first quarter of next year, we can realize the cooperation of the cost-sharing. So more people know about the cooperation of this our national flag carrier that can bring more number of tourists exchange from Indonesia and Mexico. And we realize actually the fact that the distance of our countries, as I discussed with Professor Sjahril just now, that our distance, the knowledge from both countries are very low. It doesn't show the potential that we have as big countries. We have the language barrier, the historical, cultural, and political reasons. But this factor, in fact, could be reduced in both sides. For instance, establish Spanish language training in schools, exploring joint research between the university and the research education institution, and promoting awareness of both nations. The reason why I think the communication of the language is also one of the most important aspects, just because we will know each other. You know more about Indonesia if you master the language, if you know the language. For us, in terms of this promoting the understanding and the knowledge of our both people, since the last 19 years, we already introduced what's so-called the scholarship program, Dharma Siswa. This is a one-year scholarship program that we offer to Mexico, to many countries in the world, India, especially in Mexico, to study Indonesian culture, which can include Bahasa or language of Indonesia and arts. And since then, we know that about more than 150, I think, of Mexican already took the benefit of it. And we see that this is not enough because this is only 1 year program. We offer also the graduate postgraduate program for the Mexicans. But we found that this is not quite successful. We want to push this again to get more Mexican students to come to Indonesia and to learn about everything in Indonesia. Because we have a similar subject, in university in Mexico. So through this kind of exchange, we believe that more people in Mexico know about Indonesia, as well as Indonesia, that get the benefit from the offer of Mexico will also be a promoter of the Mexico and Indonesia. So in this kind of things, one of the main aspects in the first instance can become the ambassador, and we can say so, that can promote and introduce both countries, both culture, both knowledge in both countries. So language is the most important one for me. In Indonesia now, for example, at least in 5 universities now, they already opened the Spanish language center from the University of Indonesia, the biggest in Jakarta, in Yogyakarta, Profesor Gajah Mada, the University of Pajajaran, Airlangga. The latest one is the Sabaruddin in Makassar. They also have the Spanish language center now. But that's not enough, We want to have some kind of like British Council, for example, Erasmus Swiss. Because I don't know, I don't recognize any of the Hispanic language center in Jakarta. Even though we know that Hispanic came much earlier than the Dutch, which already have the Erasmus Swiss in Indonesia. Or British, which only stayed just a short while, if compared with the Dutch. And the Spanish and the Portuguese were the pioneers came to Indonesia during that time. If you happen to know that the history of galleon between the Philippines and Mexico, but previously at the same time Spanish is also in Indonesia to get for what you call the spices. Because the spice island is in Indonesia, in the southern part of the Philippines. And part of Indonesia, for example, in the eastern part, like what we call now Timor-Leste, much of the provinces close to that, surrounding the Timor-Leste, was the first colony of the Spanish at that time. But the history doesn't bring us that the glory seasons, that we can recognize as part of the important phase to closer the relations of the Mexico and Indonesia. Maybe in the future, we can bring this issue also, like what have been now established and inaugurated every year between Philippines and Spanish and Philippines and Mexico in Acapulco.
Yes.
Yeah, I was attending the inauguration just last month. Okay. So, for this kind of things, for example, if any students, for example, interested to go to see the opportunities, exploring more about the scholarship program in Indonesia, we are in Indonesia Embassy is ready to work with you and to facilitate a 1 year program, graduate program, or postgraduate program. So by that making utilization of our offering, hopefully through the student in the first instance, we can make these relations as part of the bilateral improvement think, all in all, in short, at glance, that I can tell you about, first about Indonesia, the wonderful. Maybe it's not really bear the expectations, but at least I can give you a glance, and also diplomatic relation bilaterally, as I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassador, thank you for such a wonderful presentation on such a wonderful country like Indonesia. I sincerely hope that Mexico-Indonesia relations can be as wonderful as your country and your presentation was. Thank you very much. I know that you have a previously been an ambassador and you will need to leave relatively soon. Would you be open to answer one or two questions before you have to leave? Yes. Would someone be interested in making a question to the ambassador? You can make the question in English or in Spanish. I'll be more than happy to translate, but also the ambassador understands Spanish, so feel free. I do have a question, Ambassador, and that is, what's the secret on how such a diverse country, diverse society has been able to maintain united throughout the years? We see in many, many countries around the world, even countries in Europe, in which each of the ethnic groups or the autonomous regions are trying to find higher levels of autonomy or even independence. From what I see, Indonesia is a great example, a good practice on how to maintain unity with diversity. What's the secret?
Thank you. This is a wonderful question, Professor. But I believe one is because we have been colonized for so long. And we have struggling for 100 years. And we united when we're struggling. We keep helping one another when we're struggling. So we have a common enemy, a real common enemy that suppressed us during the colonialization. And the secondly, the leadership of Indonesia. We have President Sukarno, our first president, as a proclamator. A proclamator is President Sukarno and the Vice President Hatta. They are the duo that can be separated. One is political leaders, one was the economic leaders. Both of them work hands in hand. And they are all managed together to bring all elements of the society, regardless of religions, ethnicity, to be always together, to bring the country, to develop the country, to build the country, to develop the country during that time. For example, one of the unity example that they already established within the countries. If you go to Jakarta, you see the biggest cathedral in Jakarta, face to face with the biggest mosque in Jakarta. You know what that was the history? The president instructed the architect from the Christian to design and to build the mosque. And he asked the most prominent architect from the Muslim to design and to construct the cathedral. And it happened now, the biggest and the most beautiful mosque and the church in Indonesia is in Jakarta. It's one of the things. And the other example that they came to many provinces in Indonesia. They walk with the people. They eat with the people, they talk with the people. Regardless, like I mentioned. So, these two main reasons I feel that up until now bring us strong together. Besides the previously I mentioned about the Sumpah Pemuda. The youth get together in Jakarta and they pledge an oath, one language, one nation, one land. Up until now, we celebrated as our victory of gaining our independence at the later years of 1944. And this kind of history brought our spirit up until now. within the parliament, be it in the national level, also in the local level. And this also always become the reference of our politicians, and also become the, what do you call it, the parameters of politicians to stay in the seat as politicians. So, check and balance done by the people, by media, by the government itself. Based on this all reference, help us to survive our agenda. Thank you.
Once again, Ambassador, thank you for all your generosity. We know that you have to leave, so we'll make a very. Oh, we do have another question, so please.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. I just want to ask you if I would like to start a business, what kind of products do you think would be necessary to export from Mexico to Indonesia? And the opposite, what kind of products do you think are needed in Mexico that can be imported to Indonesia?
Yes, from Mexico, you know that we are now have a great demand on automotive spare part, on the medical instrument, or you call it medical instrument or medical, what do you call it exactly? Medical equipment, medical instrument or medical equipment. And we also need the manufactured product from here in Mexico as we now develop the area of our maritimes. Ships, for example, the things related to the spare parts, the technology, and also the aircraft, spare part of the aircraft industry. We are the one in ASEAN now, within the 10 countries, that have the industrial aircraft industry in Indonesia. But we still need to develop the byproduct. And I know Mexican produce about more than 80% of the demand from the North America. I think we have that kind of experience in this sense. This kind of product is needed for Indonesia. And you also have the agricultural product here in Mexico. We are now set the target of the so-called food security. We need more beef cattle in Indonesia. We lack of this because of also long we don't reform these sectors in Indonesia. And then we need a corn. You know, in the middle part of Indonesia, back 20 years ago, much depended on corn. The staple food was corn. But then, because of the transmigration policy of the government, most of the areas which grow with corn before was then changed with the rice. Rice itself is not survive because we need more kind of staple food for Indonesia. So I think we need corn also from Mexico. So more agricultural product from Mexico is needed in Indonesia, and food product from Mexico. I'll tell you an example. Just a friend of mine brings some Mexican businesses to Jakarta about a week ago, because we have every year the biggest trade expositions. We call it Indonesian Trade Expo. We brought some of Mexico to Indonesia. And what happened? The Indonesians tried to find where they can buy the taco machine.
Okay.
Taco machine. Why? Because they know that the taco is fit to the Indonesian taste. And not many Indonesians now has the taco product machine. So more of them now asking for the kind of machines. What do you call it, the machines? The production machine of the taco. I believe since a number of the Mexican product now receive so many demands in many countries in Asia because of the growing of the businesses in culinary. I believe this kind of product is much more promising to Indonesia in the future. Let's say, for example, that you go to Bali, you find the finest taco in Indonesia, in Bali. It's one restaurant only. The demand is very high, the restaurant is only one. But you have about 12 million people coming to Bali from overseas, plus the domestic tourists itself. So these kind of things that you may need from Indonesia, they Indonesia need from Mexico, that you can also think about to export to Indonesia. Besides from Indonesia, we have, that we produce biggest product of the palm oils. Palm oils, for example, like the cooking oil. This is the product, the byproduct of the palm oil. We also produce the soap, and also, what do you call it? Again, butter from the palm oil. And also from the residual of the palm oil, you can also make it into the, what do you call it, livestock food. So this one of the things. The other from Indonesia that you might need is also rubber tire. We need them. And some kind of spare part. We can always exchange the spare part. But what we need from Mexico is the other things of the automotive spare part. What you need from Indonesia is also the different kind of things, which give you a comparative advantage. For example, like I can say to you the car battery. We produce a lot of car battery in Indonesia with very competitive price. But we see that the car battery in the Mexican market came through United States. Many Indonesians come through United States. And also, one of the things that we found that very competitive here and a very good quality is our filter oil for the big automotive, big car. I talked to the company here who imported from Indonesia and the user. They said that this quality is even better than we found than what we have from China. It's a kind of like promising to me that I can share with you. But many other things that we would like to discuss with you in like if you're interested in come to our embassy. Because not only in trade, in the area of investment, we can exchange a lot of opportunity that bring a benefit to both business on both sides.
Once again, Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for your generosity. Or do you have another question? Greg?
Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador. I have two questions. I think the first one is complicated, but I just want to, I'm curious. The political institutions are the core of the impact of the development of the country. Why do you think that is the core of the success of the Indonesian region? And the second question is that how to establish bridge between Mexico and Indonesia when there is obviously a difference that we can, I don't know how to say it in polite. There are differences that obviously is not possible to connect because we have to use a third language. We are not, I don't know where to learn Indonesian, and I don't know if in Indonesia there is a place where we could learn Spanish. So how to establish this kind of bridge when obviously we have to establish a relationship in a third language, in a, I don't know, in a third place like the United States, because we don't have the airlines to connect the country. How to create this strong relationship when you don't have this infrastructure, the culture connections, or how to say pop relationship like the Japan has with Mexico with the J-pop culture, or United States with the soft power. I don't know.
First, for the political things, in the first instance, the development of the country just gained the independence must be driven by the political leaders, the political movement of the leaders, to bring the spirit of the development of the states for the people living in that country. I think this is very common. After that, then the people need to be driven to the area which is more close to their daily life, which is economy, trade and everything. But in Indonesia, for example, the politics in the past driven the economic development. But since we moved to the new order after the Sukarno times, then more of the attentions come to the economic development, because we know that the political euphoria has to stop in order to bring the concrete and the juice to the benefit of the people to manage their life. Like, for example, to bring a job and to motivate them how to create a job, how to earn the livings in the daily life. But the second question you have, you know that language is important. But as I mentioned earlier, we have the historical heritage of the past Spanish and Portuguese, which left in Indonesia. This is like what I can say, the similar like DNA. When you have that kind of things, when it comes again to your face, you feel that immediately you are familiar with this. For example, if you go to the area where Spanish and Portuguese were in Indonesia before, you find the similarity of the buildings, constructions, the similarity of the people living, and also I can say about the food, part of the cultural heritage as well. And the other things also, if you go to Indonesia, if you go to the eastern part, if you go to Sumatra, the western part of Indonesia, where the Portuguese were there, you know the first island, Sumatra, was named as Andalusia. And I came from the University in Sumatra. Up until now, they still keep the name Andalas. University of Andalusia or Andalas. And the name of the people living in Sumatra is given after the name of the Portuguese or the Spanish. Elizabal, like that. The name of the woman like that as well. And as well as in the eastern part of Indonesia. Once you start introducing the telenovela in Indonesia, it's very easily become popular. You know, when I talk about this to the people in Spanish, you know, to my country, in Mexico, and I tell them about this kind of thing, they will laugh. They laugh and happy about this. But you know that this is a kind of like something in the past have been called because of the present of the films in Indonesia. The livelihood that have been expressed through the films is not much different. It's the daily story of Indonesian people, Indonesian culture. There's something which for me, for us, is very easy to bring us together, despite the distance, despite the interest that you may have now and in the past with the regions itself. And the language, most of Indonesia, most of the Indonesian language or vocabulary using the Spanish vocabulary and also Portuguese. And even we use the Latin as our so-called, what do you call it, language. We're using the Latin pronunciations. So for us, it's not difficult to read the Spanish and to learn the Spanish itself, except myself. I've been 10 months here, I'm still speaking in English.
Thank you. You still have time because you said you had this.
Yes, I think since we are not many in this room, I think I have a chance.
It's better to have choices than others.
Yeah.
Thanks for your presentation, first of all. I was in Bali like 4 years ago. Yeah, and I backpacked to all of Bali, and I remember that a lot of people in Ubud were worried about people from Jakarta. Well, Muslim people coming from Jakarta to Bali, and like they were afraid that their Balinese traditions were gonna be lost. So my question is this an issue in most of Indonesia? And if it is, or mainly in Bali, what is the government doing to protect or remain the Balinese traditions?
Yes. Actually, I think you heard from few peoples in Bali that were worried about that. But what we feel that is nothing happened with the destruction of the culture. Because the Muslim itself, as I'm a Muslim, we preserve and we live together harmoniously. We respect other language, other religions. We respect Balinese religions. We know that maybe the expression comes from the Balinese, which is the lesser number of the religious populations in Indonesia. But we all Indonesian, be it Muslim, Christian, and the languages, respect the Balinese culture. As you always realize that everywhere we go, we always promote Bali. We're proud of Bali.
Yeah.
Even he is a Christian diplomat, even he is a tourist promoter coming from Buddhists, for example, which is not Hindus, but they respect Bali, they always promote Bali. So all of us have the commitment to maintain these harmonious religions, these harmonious relations between the religious affairs of our populations. So one or two people might have worried about it, but I think it's very normal and it will be part of our profit. Like in my profit in Sumatra, most of us are Muslims. When the Christian come, few people worry what happens. But we understand that they don't know the history. They don't really have the good background on how we managed to live up until now in this way. But through the education, through the interaction, we promote the interaction between our people from the early age and give them more understanding, even though they are not living in the history of our independence. But then they can understand pretty well. Then we know that nothing seriously happened between the religious population in Indonesia.
Thanks.
Nuevamente, muchísimas gracias, embajador, por tanta generosidad de su tiempo. Sabíamos que usted se tenía que retirar hace media hora, y aún así, you gave us an extra half hour. Thank you very much. We'll make a very short recess for us to say thank you and goodbye to the ambassador. Dr. Ruano will make the honor of escorting you, so we can continue the conference with Dr. Sulthon and the comments of His Excellency Omar Martinez de Loret. Ambassador, once again, thank you for this generosity and thank you for beginning better cooperation between CIDE and Indonesia as a whole. We have a few tokens of our appreciation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
En la cual tendremos el gran honor de escuchar al Dr. Sulthon Sabaruddin, quien nos hablará sobre las relaciones entre Indonesia y América Latina. Para su presentación en español, aunque su PowerPoint simultáneo es en inglés. Y después tendremos el gran honor de escuchar al embajador Omar Martínez de Borreta, quien además de haber sido embajador de México en China, en Yugoslavia, fue secretario general del Colegio de México y el presidente fundador del Colegio Mexiquense. Por lo tanto, una combinación impecable entre un gran diplomático, pero al mismo tiempo un gran académico y formador de instituciones. El Sulthon, el micrófono es tuyo, por alrededor de 15 a 20 minutos. Perfecto.
Buenas tardes. Bueno, intentaré hacer la exposición, la presentación en español. Mi español es no tan bueno, intermedio, o sea que espero que ustedes puedan entender lo que voy a presentar hoy. Y perdón por mi pronunciación directo, que tal vez no puede entender todas las palabras. Hoy voy a discutir sobre la política exterior de Indonesia hacia América Latina. Voy a empezar la política exterior de Indonesia hacia América Latina desde el año 1945. Era nuestra independencia, cuando ganamos nuestra independencia de Japón y también de Holanda, y hasta ahora, hasta 2015. Y el primero, vamos a empezar. Primero, un poco información general, que en América Latina tenemos relación diplomática con 32 países, excepto con Barbados. Y lo demás ya tenemos la relación diplomática, y tenemos 11 embajadas en América Latina. Y como puedes ver en la presentación, hay en México, Panamá, y también en Argentina, Buenos Aires, Santiago, Colombia, Venezuela, Brasil, Surinam, entre otros. Y Surinam, para su información, tenemos gran diáspora. Tenemos descendientes de Indonesia en Surinam, porque Surinam era colonizado por Holanda en aquel tiempo. ¿Y por qué hay diáspora indonesia en ese país? Porque durante la época 1900, al principio de 1900, las personas de Java, hay varios puertos, particularmente en el central Java, los holandeses los llevaron por Sudáfrica, se fueron por Sudáfrica, y desde Sudáfrica se fueron a Surinam, por el barco. Y por eso, y ellos ahí en aquel tiempo trabajaban como esclavos en la agricultura, entre otros, para cultivar azúcar y otros productos de agricultura. Y bueno, y al final, cuando Surinam obtenió su independencia, algunos volvieron a Indonesia y algunos se quedaban ahí. Y hasta ahora, por lo tanto, Surinam, la relación entre Indonesia y Surinam, hay una relación más fuerte en el aspecto de, si vemos en el aspecto de sociocultural. Y vamos a empezar con la relación entre Indonesia y América Latina desde la época de la presidencia de Sukarno. Sukarno es nuestro presidente, nuestro primer presidente durante esta época, la relación entre Indonesia con América Latina fue muy, digo yo, estrecho, muy amigable. ¿Por qué? Sukarno, bueno, se puede ver en la pantalla que Sukarno, como ya ha dicho el embajador, fue, entre otros, a México hasta 3 veces, y a México 1959, 60 y 61, y bueno, hay una información informal, si ustedes quieren saber, que Sukarno, pero ese es informal, tenía una novia secreta, se llama Ana Berta López, era el Miss Universo, sí, o sea que la relación era muy personal, sí, con el presidente Adolfo Mateus y también con ese aspecto, o sea que se puede ver cómo era la relación durante aquella época. También tenía relación fuerte con Cuba, con Fidel Castro, también con Che Guevara, y también con el presidente de Argentina, Arturo Frondizi. Él encontró con el presidente de Argentina y también con Uruguay, se llama Martín Regoyen. Bueno, se puede ver que Sukarno fue a varios países en América Latina, pero es también parte de su política exterior, porque en aquel tiempo el más importante de la política exterior de Indonesia es sobre cómo luchar contra el imperialismo, contra la colonización. Bueno, es normal porque en aquel tiempo hubo muchos países que obtuvieron las independencias. Con los países de África, como ya he dicho el embajador, hubo Conferencia de Asia y África en el Bandung en 1955, y bueno, era la época, como ves, la época de decolonización, periodo. Bueno, un poco la película, donde Sukarno fue a Argentina, encontró con Arturo Frondizi, y es Cuba, y Cuba, y ese Cris, eso es como una espada, como se puede ver, se llama Cris, es el regalo, un regalo que Sukarno dio a Arturo Frondizi, y está ahora en el Museo Bicentenario en Buenos Aires. Bueno, es el Sukarno con Adolfo Mateus López, y también, al contrario, aparte de como Adolfo Mateus ya fue a Indonesia en 1962, también Che Guevara fue a Indonesia y se fue a uno de los más, un templo antiguo, se llama Candi Borobudur, es muy famoso en Indonesia, y bueno, Che Guevara fue allá también, sí. Se puede ver como la relación en aquella época muy amigable, muy estrecho. Y bueno, hay intercambios de escuelas. Argentina también establecieron escuelas en Indonesia, y también Indonesia estableció escuelas en Argentina, y también con Venezuela, pero políticamente la relación era muy fuerte, muy cerca, pero la relación en el aspecto de economía no era tan fuerte, pero es normal, porque la economía en aquel tiempo no era la prioridad, porque agenda economía es prioridad después de la Guerra Fría acabada en el año 1990, después de la Guerra Fría terminó, pues la economía gana ser prioridad. Por eso durante esta época hay mucha proliferación de tratado de libre comercio en el año 90. Y bueno, y ahora nuestro segundo presidente, Suharto, en el 1968 hasta 98, la verdad 31 años de régimen de administración muy largo. Y durante esta época tengo que decir que Suharto, su prioridad en el aspecto de la política exterior, cómo la política exterior puede apoyar el desarrollo económico de Indonesia. Y por lo tanto, según este punto de vista, pues los países, no solo América Latina, pero también los países de África, no eran importantes para apoyar el desarrollo económico de Indonesia durante la época de Suharto, aunque hay luego invigoración para fortalecer la relación económica a partir de los últimos de los 80, pero en 1968 hasta últimos de los 80 no eran prioridad, y su política exterior es más cómo fortalecer la relación con América, Estados Unidos, con oeste de Europa. ¿Y por qué? Porque primero esos países son importantes para obtener el fondo para soportar el desarrollo económico. El fondo en inglés se llama Official Development Assistance, ayuda de fondo oficial para desarrollo de Indonesia. Y segundo, es más competitivo en aquella época comprar productos o hacer intercambios comerciales con los países avanzados, porque los precios eran más competitivos y hay vuelos directos, en el aspecto de costo, el costo de transportación, el precio de los productos son más competitivos comparando con comprar los productos de países desarrollando como en países de América Latina o países de África en aquel tiempo. Y bueno, a partir de los fines de los 80s hay un poco cambio de prioridad, que ambos Indonesia vio América Latina como una región potencial en el aspecto económico, y también los países de América Latina empezaron a mirar hacia Pacífico para fortalecer la relación económica. Y en este año, 1989, bueno, se estableció APEC, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, donde bueno, los países de este de Asia y también los países de América Latina, con Estados Unidos, bueno, hay este foro para unir y para fortalecer la relación económica entre países que están rodeados en el Asia-Pacífico. Y bueno, y nosotros en Indonesia era ¿cómo le digo? En inglés host, bueno, la casa para el cumbre de APEC en Bogor, en una ciudad que se llama Bogor, en 1994. Y los países como México, luego Chile y bueno, hay varios países de América Latina también vinieron allá, bueno, para fortalecer la relación económica. Y bueno, hubo crisis. México hubo crisis, bueno, llamaba tequila crisis, ¿sí? En 1994-95. Y bueno, México hubo crisis, Indonesia también hubo crisis en 1997-98. Y bueno, y ambos países, bueno, si ustedes ven el crecimiento de la economía, bueno, eran negativos y bueno, era la época de la transición de economía y también para nosotros política, porque Suharto cayó como presidente de Indonesia en 1998 entre otros por el crisis de la economía de Indonesia. Y bueno, durante este periodo de la crisis hasta al principio de 2000, la relación en general, la relación Indonesia con América Latina estaba descendiendo, bueno, bajando, pero a partir de mediados de 2000, donde hubo recesión de economía en Estados Unidos y también siguiente con el crisis en el europeo, este tiempo, la verdad, estimula los países los países desarrollando buscar nueva potencia, mercados con potencias. Ellos no pueden depender mucho de los mercados con sus socios comerciales grandes como Estados Unidos, como oeste de Europea, porque hubo crisis. Ellos no pueden depender de esos mercados, tienen que diversificar sus portafolios y la exportación de portafolios y también diversificar el mercado. Por eso, durante este periodo, Indonesia empezó a ver África, América Latina y también Central Europea, este Europea, como nuevas potenciales. Y también América Latina buscan quieren fortalecer la relación con los países de Asia-Pacífico. Y se pueden ver en la pantalla que desde la crisis global, la recesión Estados Unidos, por ejemplo, Indonesia con México, el comercio se aumenta rápidamente después de la crisis global. Y por ejemplo, como con Uruguay también se aumentó rápidamente. Y bueno, y entre otros, tenemos, ahora estamos en negociación de tratados libres de comercio con dos países. Uno con Chile, Indonesia-Chile Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, que está en la etapa segundo o tercero de negociación, y con Perú. También está en la etapa de negociación para tratado de libre comercio. O sea que hasta ahora hay 33 países de América Latina y ahora hay dos países que Indonesia está haciendo negocios para haciendo negociaciones para el Tratado de Libre Comercio. Y se puede ver también que según porción de mercado o market share, que nuestra relación Indonesia con América Latina aumentó desde alrededor 1.5 a 1.3% en 1983, ahora en 2014 llega hasta 2.5%. Aumenta, pero pocos. O sea que tenemos que fortalecer la relación de comercio entre estas dos regiones. Y también hay inversiones. Para su información, que Brasil, una compañía se llama Vale, hace una inversión en níquel, en la minería, y bueno, la inversión, según el dato, llega hasta 13.000 millones de dólares. Argentina, hay una compañía se llama Tenaris, también hizo inversión en Indonesia. Perú, con AG Grupo, tal vez ustedes saben, AG Grupo es una soft drink, bebida para beber en cola drinks en Indonesia. También establecieron compañías ahí, y también Indonesia hizo una inversión en Brasil con el cigarrillo, inversión en Brasil. Y bueno, y hay desafíos, y entre otros, como ya lo ha dicho el embajador, los desafíos como lenguajes, como ha dicho usted también, lenguajes y distancia. Pero distancia, la verdad, no tiene que ser un desafío, porque la distancia, por ejemplo, de Indonesia a México y de Indonesia a Estados Unidos, la verdad no hay gran disparidad. O sea que, ¿por qué eso ser obstáculo para fortalecer la relación bilateral? Pero bueno, desafortunadamente no hay vuelo directo hasta ahora. Bueno, hay code sharing, como ha dicho el embajador, Aeroméxico con Garuda, pero todavía no hay vuelo directo desde Indonesia a México, por ejemplo. Pero de México a China hay, de México a Japón hay, pero de Indonesia a México hasta ahora todavía no hay. Y bueno, también tenemos que fortalecer la relación, cooperación en las infraestructuras, sí, en el marítimo, infraestructura también. Y por último, para fortalecer la relación económica, tenemos que fortalecer también la cooperación sociocultural, bueno, entre otros, como lo ha dicho el embajador, lenguajes y bueno, cooperación académicas para promover awareness por ambos países. Bueno, gracias y bueno, espero que ustedes puedan venir a Indonesia.
Bravo. Muchas gracias, más que nada por lo novedoso de la información, Sulthon, porque realmente el nivel de desconocimiento que existe entre nuestras dos sociedades, nuestros dos países, es tan enorme que el simple hecho de contar con esta información es verdaderamente pionero y por lo tanto enormemente importante. Sin más introducción, dejo la palabra en el embajador Omar Martínez Legorreta, quien también fue profesor del CIDE, por cierto, entre sus múltiples actividades académicas. Embajador, ¿qué honor tener?
Gracias, doctor Sjahril. Agradezco la oportunidad. Y al CIDE. A mí me ha parecido muy interesante la exposición del profesor Sulthon Sjahril, sobre las relaciones de Indonesia con América Latina. Ya las han repasado, me parece, de una forma muy completa y sucinta. Yo únicamente quiero añadir algo que le he dicho a él más temprano este día, cuando teníamos una entrevista que me hizo favor de pedirme para apuntar más este aspecto, y es los esfuerzos que hicimos en el pasado desde instituciones como empezando el Colegio de México, pero más tarde a propósito de las reuniones y participación de México. Bueno, yo del primero y único observador de México en las reuniones del Pacific Economic Cooperation Council, del cual había de brotar APEC, precisamente, en lo cual en México, debido a ese enorme desconocimiento que teníamos y que seguimos teniendo de todo lo que se refiere a los países de Asia y el Pacífico, pues íbamos a participar sin saber exactamente de qué se trataba. Le platicaba a Sulthon, profesor Sulthon, que un amigo muy extrañado de Indonesia, que murió desafortunadamente, el doctor Sjahril, en aquellos años director ejecutivo del think tank más conocido de Indonesia, el CIDE-DEI, el Center for Strategic International Studies de Indonesia, que tiene su sede en Yakarta, institución que visité en múltiples ocasiones y en la cual hablábamos del gran desconocimiento, para no decir absoluto, que había entre América Latina y países del sudeste de Asia, no nada más Indonesia en general. Y nos proponíamos desde aquellas reuniones del PEC, en el que sigue México participando, y después en la PEC, ambas iniciativas que se deben mucho al doctor Sjahril, hablábamos de la necesidad de crear un foro para instituciones académicas de los países de América Latina y de los países del sudeste de Asia. Países tan parecidos unos a otros con otros y sin embargo tan ignorantes unos de otros como no fueran de ciertos aspectos. En 1997, en una reunión del PEC famoso en Pekín precisamente, el doctor Sjahril y yo habíamos trazado un proyecto de programa y el compromiso era que el doctor Sjahril, coordinaría la participación de las instituciones académicas de los países del sudeste de Asia y yo haría lo propio a partir para coordinar las de América Latina, una tarea que en cierta forma ya había empezado muchos años atrás, cuando me reunía o convoqué a varias reuniones de colegas de países sudamericanos, la primera en 1984, cuando yo había regresado de mi primera experiencia, afortunadísima primera experiencia precisamente en Bali, en Indonesia, donde se reunió el PEC, el Pacific Economic Cooperation Council. Y yo era el único mexicano, fui observador y por una institución académica, el Colegio de México. Y me encontré que de otras instituciones, ninguna académica, pero de las otras eran de embajadores en Australia o embajadores, inclusive uno de Inglaterra, Francisco Rego, que eran por Chile y por Perú, pero ellos tenían instrucciones de sus gobiernos de saber de qué se trataba aquello. Reuní la primera reunión de colegas latinoamericanos de instituciones académicas en las universidades de los Andes, en Bogotá. Y allí asistieron de la Universidad Central de Ecuador, de la Universidad del Instituto de Estudios Peruanos, que estaba en Lima, entonces una institución de investigación muy importante, y de la Universidad Central, de ahí mismo de Bogotá, y debe haber habido de Ecuador, en la central en Quito. Éramos 5 o 6 gentes, de los cuales mi interés era decirles: miren, han empezado estas series de reuniones, y la reunión, y ven ustedes el resultado. Yo era el único observador por América Latina, de hecho, del sector académico, entonces, y nadie más. Y les pasé una especie de encuesta a propósito de esa reunión por las instituciones estas que nos íbamos a reunir. En ninguna había programa, no programa siquiera, algún interés por países del otro lado del Pacífico Sudeste de este. Chile ya había empezado, por supuesto, sus intereses con la Universidad Nacional, el Instituto de Estudios Internacionales de la Universidad Nacional de Chile con Australia, y empezaban a hacerse algunos coqueteos con Nueva Zelanda. Lógico, estaban al otro lado del Pacífico, pero en el Pacífico Sur no había nada. Después de aquella reunión en 97, desde 84 hasta 97, nos reunimos en Pekín, otra vez la misma iniciativa. Lo hicimos. La siguiente reunión de PEC fue en 1995, en Santiago, porque le tocaba a la sede ser a Chile, y asistí yo, y los amigos chilenos en Pekín se habían comprometido a ser los que convocaran para el paso número 2 de esta posible coordinación o cooperación académica. Ellos se apoderaron de la reunión, hicieron el programa, y ahí se acabó la iniciativa, desafortunadamente. Yo mantuve desde la Universidad de Colima, desde el Colegio de México, desde el Mexiquense, inclusive antes, cuando fundé el Mexiquense en 1986. Desde entonces estábamos con una serie de actividades en los cursos. Yo estoy en una relación, en una institución en el sentido de muy limitados alcances en términos de más colegas, de más interés y apoyos, pero otras instituciones como el Colegio de México. Es decir, la conclusión de todo esto es decirle, como le decía yo al profesor Sulthon, es que seguimos teniendo un muy incipiente, ahora diría yo, conocimiento e interés sobre esta vasta porción del Pacífico, pero sí de Asia-Pacífico, y todo lo que se llama dentro del este de Asia, donde no se cuenta Australia y Nueva Zelanda, y luego de Asia-Pacífico, donde entran Australia y Nueva Zelanda. Y la necesidad absoluta de que pudiéramos volver a recoger aquellas ideas de organizar un foro académico